Story 1. My wife used to have awful night terrors. One night, she sat straight up and started screaming loudly. For weeks, I had nightmares after hearing what sounded like someone attacking her. I would take a cat vomiting over that 11 days out of 10. Story 2. A smoke alarm low battery chirp. Just one, so you have no idea which room. You are standing in the hall in your pajamas in the dark, waiting. Chirp. Sounds like it is down the hall, maybe. Story 3. Definitely an alarm you forgot you set. Nothing ruins sleep faster than that heart attack moment. Story 4. Definitely a shrieking child. Nothing more hair-raising or adrenaline-inducing than that. Story 5. Small children giggling when none are in the house. Story 6. The glass broke when the cat knocked something over. Now you have to walk through the broken glass in the dark to turn on the light, clean it up immediately, and make sure the cat is okay. Story 7. My girlfriend and I dog-sat a dog known to eat feces. We were woken by the unmistakable sound of vomiting followed by licking. When we turned on the light, the smell hit us. She was in her kennel forcing regurgitated feces through the bars with her tongue like Play-Doh. We experienced many dry heaves that night. Story 8. Ambulance sirens and the bouncing of a fast-moving vehicle that you are strapped to are disorienting. I have done it once or twice. One of those times was in a helicopter. Try waking up to that. Story 9. A 4-year-old I was babysitting woke up during the night, got out of bed, and fell down the stairs. The crash and her screams still haunt me. Story 10. Some months back I woke to the sounds of police dragging a man out of my basement. He was having a mental health episode. The neighbors saw him getting in and called the police while I was asleep. So I probably heard, "Put your hands in the air." The first floor apartment was directly beneath me. Story 11. My dog was crying. I almost had a heart attack when I woke up to his cries. He jumped awkwardly off the bed and hurt his leg. His cries of pain terrified me. Story 12. I used an air raid siren as my alarm for a while until I realized that could be potentially disastrous because I might sleep through a real warning. Story 13. Smoke alarm. I had a single smoke alarm that was interconnected to all the other alarms in my house. It was faulty and, on 2 separate occasions, went off around 2 in the morning, triggering every alarm. That will wake you up quickly. Story 14. My friend who works in a convenience store was sleeping in the living room when a truck rolled backward through 4 lanes of traffic and crashed through his bedroom wall. The store is on a small hill, and someone had not set their parking brake after running in for beer. The truck hit no vehicles but ruined his bedroom. His dogs were frightened but unharmed. His uncle owns the store and lives across the road. Story 15. Does anyone else get scared half to death by that classic iPhone alarm sound? It's got some real intimidation power. Story 16. Baby babbling and blowing raspberries. Crying means they need something. Once it is resolved, they usually go back to sleep, or they have just briefly woken and will likely fall back asleep. Babbling and blowing raspberries mean they are truly awake. Mother of an 8.5-month-old. Story 17. The nozzle of your 3-dimensional printer is scraping the infill of a very long print job. Story 18. Any alarm that starts calm, then goes into full panic mode. Give me a chance to exist first. Story 19. Pretty much anything. Loud noises trigger my anxiety, and anything loud enough to wake me angers me. Story 20. A woman screamed. I stumbled toward the sound and found my brother covered in blood while my mother cried out. Or silence. Then you realize someone is standing over you in the dark. Story 21. A screaming child. My then 3-year-old granddaughter awoke from a nightmare. I raced a cat up the stairs. It took several minutes to comfort her with active participation by all 3 cats. After that, they deserted me and became guard cats protecting my granddaughter from killer squirrels and monsters. One of my cats, who weighed 15 pounds and looked like a black leopard, adored little children, especially girls. Story 22. Gunfire is better than the alternative in that situation. Story 23. I could make love to you every morning. I'm so glad we are cellmates. Story 24. I grew up in a very old, creepy house where my father had also grown up. People often talked about strange things that happened there. My little brother said he saw things, but I did not believe him because I had never seen anything. Except for one night. I was asleep in my room on the top bunk, with my little brother on the bottom bunk, when I woke to footsteps on a creaking wooden floor. The sound was as clear as a bell. I opened my eyes, thinking it was one of my parents. From my open bedroom door, I could see the large mirror in the dining room, and in it was a green, hazy silhouette that looked like a person. I was 8 when that happened. I am 43 now, and to this day hearing footsteps at night gives me chills. Story 25. My dog makes any noise she wants. Licking herself, dry heaving or throwing up, and whining because she has diarrhea and needs to go outside right away. If she is awake, so are we. Story 26. The alarm clock. I think it's funny when I'm dreaming and my alarm starts playing at some point in my dreams and I don't realize right away that it's time to get up. It's kind of strange how that happens, though. Story 27. Once I set up the Dancing Pallbearer song as my ringtone. Story 28. The alarm clock. Nothing says your soul is officially overdue like a screeching box of regret at 6 a.m. Story 29. You hear a notification on your phone only to find it is a direct message on LinkedIn about a job opportunity you do not want or a certification course that has nothing to do with your interests. Story 30. When your dog, sleeping in your room, starts barking at the door. Story 31. Having your neighbor hammer or drill into the wall directly behind your head when you did not get enough sleep is the worst. Story 32. Children and babies crying. A fire alarm sounding. Story 33. My girlfriend's alarm wakes me up 4 to 6 times every morning. Story 34. My cats are scratching at my door. It's not even 7 a.m., and you know I'm not going to feed you. Don't be a dick. Story 35. Water dripping, running, or splashing when the house should be quiet. Story 36. Any alarm not set by you, such as a siren or someone screaming. Story 37. When a family member cries, it always signals that someone has died. The last time it happened was in 2020. My mom's and my cousin's wailing woke me, and I learned then that our beloved dog, who had been at the vet, had died. Story 38. A blood-curdling scream in your house. Double points if you live alone. Story 39. One night I woke to my dog Nova shaking a lot. I smelled what I thought was an electrical fire, a very strong ozone smell like burning tires. I kept looking for smoke, and then I realized Nova had gone after a skunk in the middle of the night. Story 40. At 2 a.m., my cat vomited a hairball on my rug. Story 41. The cracking of a very tall evergreen tree near the house. Story 42. I have never had that happen, but I would imagine a bug crawling into your ear canal. Story 43. Rockets landing closer with heavy gunfire in the background. Story 44. Screams of agony or pure, desperate fear would terrify me. I don't even know if I could get myself to move. Story 45. Probably the worst moment was my dad shouting at my mom to wake up. At first I thought it was a mean, poorly thought out prank, but he had really found her dead on the floor. A few days or weeks later my sister was shouting playfully while I was napping. I woke up and ran to her as fast as I could, wondering why she was screaming. I was angry, but she was all right. Story 46. Construction. There really is no close second for me. Leaf blowers used to dry a construction site before work began almost made me have a mental breakdown during the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic. Then the actual work started. I have to stop now. I am getting very stressed. Story 47. To me, no sound means the power went out. I always sleep with a fan on, so I notice when it is silent in the morning. Story 48. I cannot access external links. Please paste the text or transcript here, and I will correct spelling, expand all acronyms, remove meaningless repetition and special characters, fix punctuation, and output only the cleaned content suitable for Azure text-to-speech. Story 49. The dawn chorus is when the birds start singing at 3 in the morning during spring. Story 50. Random items have fallen in my house. It has happened 3 times, always unexpectedly. Each time, the sound woke me about 10 seconds before my alarm went off. Story 51. Someone is knocking on the door, and you cannot even remember who it is because you are out of it as soon as you wake up. Story 52. Three-way tie. 1. Smoke alarm. 2. A vomiting toddler, 4 years old. 3. Lawnmowers before 10 in the morning. Story 53. My fiance's alarm is driving me crazy. Any alarm is irritating, but mine plays for 3 seconds before I turn it off and get up for the day. My fiancé wakes earlier than I do, and she sets her alarm even earlier so she can hit snooze several times. The constant waking and dozing caused by her alarm has become the bane of my existence. Story 54. A police officer reads your rights and asks if you understand. Story 55. In my personal experience, the sound of a stream of water flowing all night and flooding your house. Story 56. As a parent who co-slept with my children, a diaper blowout is at the top of my list. Story 57. The garbage truck would have come if I had not put the trash out. It only happened once. I had never gotten out of bed, grabbed my keys, and rushed outside so quickly in my life. Story 58. For me, the sound of a buzzing fly entering the room at 2 a.m. keeps me awake. I cannot sleep with that noise, so I have to get out of bed, grab the swatter, and deal with it. Story 59. Knocking. I cannot do it anymore. I live alone now, but when I lived in shared houses, the sound of knocking was the worst. If I hear it on my caravan, my soul almost leaves my body. My friends in the caravan park know to text or call me first because I go into a fight, flight, or freeze response. Story 60. My baby coughing or crying, or a phone call from family at 4 a.m. usually means someone has likely died or is dying. Story 61. Someone is eating cereal. The clink of the spoon against the bowl is amplified when you are just waking up. Story 62. When my alarm manifests in my dream as an indestructible timer I cannot turn off or get rid of, I begin to feel myself spiraling into the darkest depths of insanity. Story 63. My child was vomiting. The splatter hit the tile floor, and then my child started crying. It was not a pleasant way to wake up. Story 64. The fire department was shouting, "Evacuate! Fire!" I was glad to be awakened, but the terror was indescribable. Story 65. I was sleeping in a field under the open stars one night and woke to the sound of thundering horse hooves all around me. That was pretty sobering. Story 66. I woke up to my wife snooping through my phone, and she said, "What the heck is this?" Story 67. There was an absolutely bomb-like noise when our next-door neighbor had someone drive a car through their house and into their kitchen. They missed our kitchen by about 1 meter. It was very loud. Luckily, I did not have to experience it, and I imagine I will not experience it again. Story 68. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was a block away at a neighbor's house. Apparently, there was a hostage situation. I don't remember if the no snow was involved. It probably was. I worked the night shift, so it jolted me awake mid-morning. Story 69. Sepultura's Schizophrenia album is also the best thing to wake up to. Story 70. Put your hands on your head. You have the right to remain silent. Story 71. Disrespectful neighbors making excessive noise, especially when it's too early or too late. Story 72. That one lone mosquito in your room in the pitch black. Story 73. My elderly dog tumbled off the dog stairs and screamed. I thought she had broken her back. It turned out she had dislocated her hip, and she lived 2 more years after that. When I woke up, I thought I was hearing my dog die. Story 74. A smoke alarm's low battery chirp. Not a full alarm, just that single beep every 45 seconds that you cannot locate while half asleep. It is somehow always 3 in the morning and in the ceiling you cannot reach without a ladder. Story 75. A pack of screeching coyotes was about 10 to 15 yards from the front deck of my house, near my bedroom. They must have been on a mission to kill and eat. It sort of sounded like a baby crying, but not quite. It was really creepy. Story 76. A poster falls from the wall. It is surprisingly loud and terrifying. Story 77. The most annoying sound in the world from Dumb and Dumber. Story 78. A 9mm bullet tore through the living room wall of my apartment this week. Story 79. You are in a tent and wake up to the sound of a tree falling. Story 80. My father is complaining about something or going into my room to turn off my air conditioning. I don't know which is worse, him entering my room or the air conditioning being turned off. Story 81. Construction noise and people talking loudly and obnoxiously. Story 82. The sound of your alarm after you swore you were only closing your eyes for 5 minutes. Story 83. Someone is banging on your door very loudly instead of knocking. Story 84. The house alarm is sounding because someone accidentally tripped it during the night, and the alarm is in your closet. Story 85. That particular iPhone alarm sound. Story 86. Years ago I lived in a very tight-knit neighborhood, or should I say a squatter's area. The worst sound to wake up to was someone shouting that there was a house fire. Story 87. Construction work is being done nearby. The neighbor's dog is barking. Story 88. Train horns sometimes interfere with my dreams, and I hate it. I can be having a conversation in my dream, and the other person responds with a train horn. Story 89. Your dog has diarrhea. First the sound, then the smell. Story 90. Have you ever had a hotel fire alarm go off in the middle of the night? It's absolutely terrifying. Story 91. An animal is making noises on your back while your dog barks at it. Story 92. I was sound asleep on the couch when a huge crash woke me. The house shook and I heard blood-curdling screams. I ran to the window and saw a car upside down in my front yard. One person was outside the car and 2 people were crawling out. Story 93. 7 short blasts followed by 1 long blast at 3 a.m. in the middle of the ocean. Story 94. A door slamming shakes my bed and jolts me awake. I am sensitive to vibrations. Even when someone drops something, I feel it. Story 95. There was not a sound. I turned on my phone and realized I had switched off the alarm ages ago and then fallen back to sleep. Hell. Story 96. My mom and I live together. She undoubtedly has undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder from various events in her life. Every once in a while she will have a nightmare that is particularly distressing. She makes an incredibly terrifying sound, yells no, and moves as if trying to fight off someone who is attacking her. When one of these nightmares occurs, the sound she makes always wakes me. If necessary, I will wake her to stop the nightmare, but that carries risk because she is disoriented and combative. When she finally realizes it was just a nightmare, she breaks down crying and I try to comfort her. Thankfully, those nightmares are not as frequent as they used to be. Story 97. My neighbor was yelling at her children from her car, which had stopped next to my bedroom window, because they were late for school. Maybe they are on vacation and arrived late to the beach, I guess. Story 98. Loud drilling coming from next door. My cat makes an unearthly sound before he vomits. Story 99. I'll tell you. I had one of those vertical tower fans. I took a nap and the top bearing failed, making a sound like a scream of death. It was the loudest thing I have ever heard. I don't think I slept the rest of the night. I was so freaked out by the sound. Story 100. My phone rang. No one ever calls me early in the morning unless something really bad has happened. 2 of the worst calls of my life. One July morning in 2014, I was woken to be told my mother had passed away in the early hours at the hospital. She had been dying of cancer, and we were not allowed to spend the night with her. Shortly after, I had to call my aunt to tell her that her sister had died on her birthday. 2 days after Christmas in 2021, I received an early phone call from the hospital. My father had just died of cancer. Please, no early morning phone calls for me. Story 101. My faulty smart lock beeps as if someone is trying to unlock it. 99.9% of the time, it is a spider crawling on the fingerprint sensor. Story 102. The alarm for incoming rocket sounds. Imagine you are sleeping in a tent on a cot, and suddenly that sound rips through the night. Am I going to make it? Are my friends? Story 103. A blood-curdling scream was followed by a gunshot. Moments later, police sirens sounded and more gunshots were heard. Story 104. The phone rang in the early hours. Nothing good ever comes from such a call. Story 105. Your pit bull is having a seizure at 3 a.m. Or the outside alarm beam is going off. Story 106. The alarm you forgot you set on your day off. That one hurts the soul. Story 107. At 6 a.m., my dad was drilling holes into the walls downstairs when he began having a stroke. Yes, a very dark turn. Story 108. The earthquake alarm on my phone scares me more than the shaking. Story 109. There was scratching at the door. I was home alone with the dog, sleeping during the day because I worked nights. I woke up, flung open the door, and yelled, "What do you want?" I looked down and saw the dog looking up at me with the biggest puppy dog eyes and her tail down. I quickly apologized and went back to bed. Story 110. A phone call in the wee small hours. Who's calling at this time? Translation. Oh shit. Who's dead? Story 111. This noise. Story 112. Your partner falling down the 3 stairs from the kitchen to the living room turns out to be a broken little toe and a skinned big toe. Really worth screaming about. Story 113. This may sound trivial, but if you sleep in a building with a lowered corrugated iron roof, the sound of a coconut striking the roof directly above your head is quite dramatic. Story 114. A jackhammer is operating outside your window for emergency street repairs at 3 a.m. Story 115. We had a pretty bad ice storm last year. My bedroom window is at the front of my house. I guess my neighbor across the street decided shoveling at 3 a.m. would be a good way to get ahead of the ice buildup. But at 3 a.m., when I was barely awake, it sounded like something extremely creepy scratching on the outside walls of my house. I shot up in terror, looked out the window, saw him shoveling, muttered "fucker," and went back to bed. Story 116. Street cleaner. Yet the city council does not seem to have the same opinion. Story 117. A rubbish truck is coming down the street, and you are wondering whether your bins are out. Story 118. My apartment building's fire alarm system went off at 2 in the morning. Story 119. The sound of the bin lorry early on a cold morning when you realize you forgot to wheel the bins out last night. Story 120. Personally, it was my sister's crying voice telling me that our dad had passed away in his sleep. Story 121. A text message notification is much worse than the Apple iPhone radar alarm sound. No one can change my mind. Story 122. A misconfigured computer announced my name in a very robotic voice because it was set to read whatever was spoken. The sign-in page had randomly appeared in the middle of the night, and the first thing spoken was my name, broadcast over the speaker system at full volume while I was fast asleep. Terrifying. Story 123. The snowplow is grinding its blade on the curb at the street side. It sounds like a Decepticon transforming outside your bedroom window. Extremely confusing and a likely culprit for many strange noises heard at night. Story 124. A few weeks ago, I heard a fox screaming outside my window around 3 in the morning. As a child, the emergency alert on the television was frightening when someone left it on. Story 125. Between the dog throwing up and my alarm clock going off on Friday, it was a rough morning. At my job, Friday is the worst day of the week to be at work because it is the busiest. Story 126. When my wife was receiving chemotherapy, we rescued a dog that required several antibiotics. One morning before I left for work, the dog had diarrhea in front of our bed. My wife became nauseous and, on her way to the bathroom, slipped in it and began vomiting profusely. I woke to a hysterical wife who was actively vomiting after slipping in the dog diarrhea. Story 127. That mosquito sound right by my ear is an instant wake-up call. Story 128. My passenger was screaming. I was only blinking for a long time. Story 129. I used to sleep in a shed a couple of years ago. My indoor cat slept there with me for about a month. One night, I woke to something banging on the door. I looked out the window and a bobcat was standing outside. I did not get much sleep after that. The next morning, I found the tin door had a slash in it that I assumed came from its claws. Story 130. I love my cats, but their meowing at my door for 20 minutes at 6 in the morning to be let in or fed is not the best sound to wake up to. Story 131. Red Hot Chili Peppers Hump to Bump. It has been my alarm for about a decade, and I genuinely feel panic whenever I hear it. Story 132. Your girlfriend asks whose number this is in your phone. Story 133. Your dog threw up on your bed. I learned that the hard way. Story 134. When my uncle died 18 years ago, I woke up to my father's wailing. My uncle had been my father's older brother. It was the worst sound I had ever heard. Story 135. I hear my snoring ex-wife in the bedroom while I am on the couch. Story 136. One of my son's personalized ringtones in the wee hours. My heart was in my mouth immediately. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.